Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of season 8 of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. I appreciate all the love and support. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Yeah, keep tapping in. Follow the podcast on Instagram at the Social Work Rants Podcast, and on Facebook, aka Meta, at the Social Work Rants Podcast. Hit the like button, and and of course, like, share. You can listen to podcasts on all audio platforms or on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Today we got the pleasure of having some talented social workers in the room out in Texas. Dr. Leti, I had the pleasure of uh, being part of Latinx Social Work Volume 2, international bestseller, Amazon #1 bestseller. And her colleagues got another beautiful, incredible book here. Um, Self-Care for Chingonas is out on Amazon. Great talented social workers just talking about self-care and the importance of self-care. And I always talk about self-care is not just a hashtag, is a way of life, and especially in a post-COVID world, we got to talk about self-care more than ever, and especially in our Latina, Latinx communities, that's not talked about enough about in our communities, and that's the whole purpose of the conversation today. So yes, Dr. Leti, I'll start with you. Introduce yourself, and then everybody could go around. There's a total for the audio listeners. There's 6 of us in total, me included. So everybody's going to go around and share who they are and what they do in our wonderful, interesting field of social work.
All right. Well, thank you for having us today. We're so excited to be here. I'm Dr. Leti Cavazos, and so I'm the owner and founder, CEO of Cannenta Center for Healing and Empowerment. So we're a group mental health practice in Texas, and we serve everybody, but specifically we try to serve the Hispanic community by providing bilingual services. And I'm also the founder of Cannenta Foundation. And so that's our sister nonprofit that was birthed out of seeing the need from the individuals that were coming to our group practice and realizing that not everybody had the means to afford counseling, but they had the desire to heal in a way that spoke to them. And so we provide mental health counseling at low cost or free for the Hispanic community in their language of choice, English or Spanish. And we try as much as we can to bring culture into the therapy space. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to be here, and I'll pass the baton to somebody else.
Elizabeth, Jurado, you go.
Yes. Hi, good morning. My name is Elixabeth Jurado, and I am one of the premarital counselors with Cannenta Center, and I also do life coaching. And so it's been amazing just to be part of this project, because growing up, I was like, oh, I love reading books and I love getting to see different people's perspectives. And now to share my perspective in English and Spanish is pretty cool. So thank you for having us today.
Of course. Elizabeth, you go next.
Hi, I'm Elixabeth Palafox. I'm one of the bilingual clinicians based out of San Antonio. I am so excited that this book is out there in both English and Spanish. It's been really exciting to be able to provide this to my family in Mexico and my clients who are Spanish speaking. And this concept of self-care is, I feel like, a newer one for a lot of these folks. So I'm just excited to be a part of that.
Crystal, why don't you share?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. So my name's Crystal Gonzalez. I had the pleasure of being one of, excuse me, the life coaches at Cannenta. Yeah, I mean, this is honestly amazing. Never did I think we would be able to have this opportunity, share our feelings, our story. You know, it's also very, like, it's an honor to do it, not only like as a first generation Latina, but then also as a daughter, and as just a young adult that is probably went through many of the things that a lot of people are undergoing now, and being able to share, you know, our path and what we did to hopefully show people that there are things that can be done, and change can happen, and they can live a good lifestyle.
And last but not least, Marylou.
Good morning. Hi. So my name is Marylou Ramirez, and I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. And it's an honor to be able to share with everybody the journey that we like go through in life, and just learning about the self-care journey overall. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
No, of course. Thank you, ladies, for coming on. Dr. Leti, I'm gonna start with you as a CEO of a business, and I'm trying to gear season 8 more in an entrepreneur perspective. As you know, fortunately or unfortunately, social work grad schools have for years gearing us into do private practice, but there's no business, tax information, no class, or how to market ourselves, or how to get clients and things of that nature. And I know recently, at least since we last saw each other almost a year ago, it's crazy how time flies. You expanded, know your business. So tell a little bit about that, about your business, how day in, day out regarding your business, and your expansion into other cities in Texas.
So I think for the last time we spoke, we were in Addison, and we opened our office in San Antonio. So Addison is a suburb of Dallas. And then we moved to San Antonio. And then we came back and opened a third office in Oak Cliff, which is South Dallas. So Addison's North Dallas and South Dallas. And so it's really we were looking at where is the population that we're trying to serve? Where's the community? And how do we get there? Now, we know that we can't be everywhere because there's so many of us everywhere. And so, you look at El Paso, you look at Houston, and those are areas that, we would love to be in, but we have to start little by little. And so really looking at where is the biggest population, and then how do we grow from there? So the other part that we notice is that we've really expanded throughout Texas virtually, which has been amazing since COVID. Everybody's more comfortable with that. And so when we were looking at our numbers, we have clients that are in McAllen that are like in the south tip of Texas, all of Houston, El Paso, like we have them all over, all the little towns and a lot of rural communities, because there's not a lot of Spanish speaking clinicians out in the small towns that if they have a therapist, they're lucky, right? Mm-hmm. So much less a bilingual therapist. But it hasn't come without a lot of growing pains, because that means we have 3 rents and 3 offices to maintain. And so it's really trying to figure out, it's the end of the year, so we're looking at our numbers right now very closely. So trying to figure out how do we make the biggest impact without making it sustainable, without, jeopardizing our sustainability. And so that's been an interesting process, because like you said, we don't learn that in social work school, right?
Right.
When I went to the doctoral program, I think I talked about this before, that's where I learned a lot of business planning, strategic planning, budgeting, all of those things, but there still was so much that I didn't know. And so every year I'm learning a little bit more of, okay, I should have done it this way. I need to do it this way moving forward. And it's unfortunate. I think that we as social workers should figure out a way to come together and teach each other how to do this if the schools aren't going to do that. Mm-hmm. I know social work is such a broad field, and they're trying to touch on all the different areas that we can make an impact. But this one area, I think, needs a little bit more meat to it when we're going through the program. Because I see it over and over again, that a lot of small, people want to start their own practice, and they're asking me, what did you do? How did you start? How did you, I have, what did I count? I think 3 or 4 now that have clinicians that have branched from us to start their own practice, which I highly encourage because the need's there. But they're still reaching out saying, how do I do this for billing? How do I do this for insurance? How do I do? Because we don't learn that. And so if we don't support each other, who's going to do that for us? And so we have to have that mentality that we're here to support each other through this process.
No, absolutely. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I think, Dr. Leti, you made a good point on where you talked about like supporting each other. So as social workers, it's like a big umbrella, right? And so it's like, it slowly has like opening, but it's like we all have like the branches of umbrella, more like a tree, right? So we're all like in this field and we're all growing together, we're all learning together, supporting each other. And I feel like in our field, it's something that just doesn't stop because we're all passionate about not just serving like people as a whole, because when we serve individuals, we're also serving ourselves because we know that it's something that comes from the heart. And especially like in our generation and our culture that we want to support, and we want to let like the Latin culture know like, hey, you're not alone in this, and just helping them grow too as individuals who encounter different problems. So
Yeah, that definitely so important. Now I want to touch on the book. Obviously, that's why we all here. How did the book come about? And for those who don't know what a Chingona is, if you could give a definition of that.
Yeah, so I think that in the Hispanic community, we're kind of reclaiming the word Chingona to mean somebody who owns their power, somebody who owns their voice. It's not a bad word. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It's more somebody who understands their self-worth and their value and is not afraid to speak up. And so we decided together to embark on this endeavor because one of the things I tell everybody is that nothing's off the table. If you can dream it, let's make it happen. And so that's one of the things that we think about as we serve our community is what is it that the community is asking for? What is it that we're asking for in our lives? And how do we make that happen? So we kind of threw around the idea of a book, and then we came up with, let's do a self-care book, and what would that look like? And so I was lucky enough to have enough, all the authors jump on and say, I want to do this with you. And it was a long journey, a lot of editing, a lot of rewriting, but yeah, we felt like it was something that was needed because when we work with our clients who are Hispanic, Latino, that there's this belief that we have to work and work and work, and if we're not busy, then we're going to give you something to do to make you busy. And when you slow down to just take your breath, it's almost like, oh, I'm just being lazy. There's so much to do. And so how do we teach or unteach that in our community without dismantling our culture? And so there had to be a way that we could let everybody give themselves some grace to take good care of themselves. And it doesn't mean that they're disrespecting their culture, their family, or themselves because they're not working all the time. And so we all kind of came from it from different perspectives, and it came together so beautifully because no two people had the same self-care practice at the end. We didn't plan that. We just said, write what you want to write, and everybody came up with something different. And even in the book, when people read it, like there may be some things that resonate, maybe not, but it's the idea of you figure out what works for you. And that's what I loved about it, but also we decided to translate it into Spanish. So it's all in one book. So you don't have to buy a separate book for it.
Mhm.
If you want to read it in English or Spanish, it's there. And that's what we know. A lot of our readers are both English speaking and Spanish speaking, or either or. And so it's not made for one particular person.
Yeah. So for perspective, especially on the audio side, so pretend like old school, like the end of year magazines, like they come with a double issue. So one side is English, and then you flip it on the other side is in Spanish. So I love that. I didn't even realize it when I got it, and I was like, oh snap! It's like the other side was in Spanish. So I love that idea and that concept, and the color is beautiful, just the inside of it with pictures and just how everything is like laid out is beautiful. I still got to finish reading it, but
So can I add also, like, this is a beautiful project that came from our heart, but also the goal of this project is all the sales of the books go back into the work that we're doing. So all the money, 100% of the proceeds goes back to serving the Hispanic community and providing them low cost or free mental health counseling. And so it kind of is a double layer, that it helps the reader, but it also helps the individuals who are seeking counseling.
now that there's two Elizabeths. So Elizabeth Palafox, go ahead and talk a little bit about your chapter and kind of what was like behind your writing your self-care piece.
Yeah, thank you. So my chapter was called Small Rituals. And the idea of that, when we were asked to write about our self-care, I was like, oof, I don't know what that looks like for me, other than being kind of mindful in my day-to-day routine versus mindless, right? Because sometimes we're doing things around the house or just going to work or at work, and it almost becomes dissociative, we're just kind of going through the motions. Or we're doing something, but then our mind's kind of going a million miles a minute. And so the concept was, how do we incorporate mindfulness into just like your morning routine? How do we incorporate it into folding your laundry, right? And before we started the recording, Elizabeth Jurado was talking about this cave that was like a sensory experience for her. And that was kind of the concept for this chapter, incorporating eyesight, smell, taste, touch, hearing into your everyday. And then I also talked a little bit about my mom and grandma, and how I saw them like before I even knew what they were doing, kind of taking this into practice. My mom raised us as a single mom, and she worked very long hours, and just there was a lot of stress there for her. But in the morning, I always remember she took that time to just pamper herself, to empower herself for the day. And like those 20-25 minutes in the morning are sacred to her, and it made her feel good. And she was able to show up for the rest of the day. My grandma in Mexico, her home is her sacred space, and so cleaning it and making it smell good and filling it with good food, with that intention of, this is for my family, this is to celebrate us coming home for the holidays, what have you. But yeah, so at the end of the chapter, at the end of my story, I talk about how one can just go about doing that on their own. And so some examples: if you're taking your dog out in the morning, what do your five senses tell you? What's the temperature like? What am I smelling? If you have your coffee in hand while you're walking, what does that feel like? Sipping on that, what are all the flavors there? And so just bringing you back to the present moment, not worrying so much about the day ahead, but also some gentleness if you do find yourself having those racing thoughts. Just notice, right? Just notice what's coming in. Don't judge yourself for it, and then just let it flow away. But one word to summarize my chapter is mindfulness. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Since you mentioned Elizabeth Jurado, we'll go to her.
Yes. So the cave was in reference to a recent vacation that I took with my husband. We went to Cancun and we went to a park called Senses. And this park literally tests all of your senses. And so you go into this cave in darkness. And so it makes you really appreciate your eyesight. It makes you appreciate the little things, and it just really grounds you. And it kind of, it all like relates to self-care, right? Because we go into life sometimes not knowing what to expect or what the plan, and sometimes we just have to let loose and go with the flow. And so part of my chapter is figuring out what that journey looks like for you. Every single person has their own way of figuring out what that looks like. And so for me specifically, I was in the middle of two cultures trying to figure that out. I was born in the States, but all of my family is in Mexico. And so figuring out what really stood out to me for self-care specifically took a little bit. It took a few years. And so the very, very first time and I shared in my chapter, that I went into a counseling session was in college. I was under the impression that I had everything put together and that I was great, nothing was wrong. I was just doing like a little check-in. I was a little curious to see what counseling entailed. And then the counselor asked me straight up, "Are you really okay?" And no one had actually asked me that question because the expectation was, being the oldest, I have it put together, I'm the role model, I'm okay because I never say anything, right? It's kind of like the movie, what's that movie called? Encanto, where the older sister is holding on to all the weight and is carrying it and carrying it, and she doesn't say anything until she breaks down. That was me. That was me. And so no one had asked me that question. And when they asked me that question, I broke down because I was actually validated in that moment. And it was just like 3 seconds. And so that started my journey with self-care and trying to figure out, where do I fit in? And then I started looking and admiring, other people such as Selena Quintanilla. She grew up not really fitting into the culture because she didn't know Spanish, but then she learned Spanish through her music. And so I just started figuring out, okay, I don't have to fit into this puzzle, of the perfect person. I can make my own puzzle. And so I slowly started figuring out how that looked for me, and that was connecting with my culture, making my own way through life and figuring out what makes me happy, celebrating things that I didn't know were celebrated before in my culture, connecting with my mom, connecting with my family, connecting with the roots of where we came from really, really helped me figure out my way. And so at the very, very end of my chapter, I encourage people to do either a vision board or connect with what makes you feel good, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be doing yoga in the morning or, journaling. It can be whatever it is that you connect with and gives you a sense of peace and harmony. And so I think it's a beautiful way to share how natural and how simple it can be to fall in love with self-care, because it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. It doesn't have to look like getting, massages every single week. It can be the simple little things like eating a concha in your cafecito in the morning, or getting a tamal that's fresh made from your mom's house. And so it's those little things that bring you happiness that you're like, okay, just like Elizabeth Palafox said, I'm being mindful of the moment right now. But first, you need to figure out where you are in your journey and try to figure out what makes you happy. And so that's a little bit of what my chapter is about. and hopefully, readers can take a little bit and put into their lifestyle.
No, I love that. Marylou, what's your chapter about?
Hello again. So my chapter is called A Mother's Guilt. And so my chapter is talking about my self-care journey throughout life and being a mom. Because growing up, I always saw my mom, and I never saw my mom like asking for help. I saw her like she's a Chingona, right? She doesn't really ask for help. And so like it's okay to like ask for help. Like just because I'm a mom doesn't mean like I have like all of these superpowers. And I've also talked about like being a mom, being guilty, like in the moments where I'm like, what are you doing? Like being that snapping in that moment. But how the girls mentioned like taking that step and like trying to slow down in the moment and be mindful and being in that present moment. And so I've talked about like what I have done to help slow down that moment. It could look different for everybody, like going for a walk, but how when I go for a walk, like including my little ones, or now going to the restroom is like, okay, I need to be alone, but like now, like even like brushing my teeth, like I want to brush my teeth alone, like for 2 seconds. Let me just give you these 2 seconds. But now it's like with my kids, mommy, like they look like I want to brush my teeth too. So like just, making it fun and being present in that moment. Do I have those moments where I'm gonna be like, déjenme paz? Yes. But slowing down and being more like mindful and just enjoying the moment now. So my chapter basically ends in involving like my little ones for the things that I do for my self-care journey. Because if I can't take care of myself, how am I gonna take care of my babies? Yeah.
And Crystal, talk about your chapter.
Yeah, of course. So mine is called Valórate, Know Your Worth. So I go a little bit, I want to say a deep dive, even though I'm only 28. But I go back and talking about my experience moving out, first of all, moving out of my house and moving into a different city, going to college, and being the first one to go to college, the only girl, and trying to figure that out was very hard, to say I mean, there's no other word to describe it. Just, it was hard. So learning how to be myself, find myself, obviously figure my career out, what I wanted to do in life. And then also like still learning to be a daughter. I was always the one that would like question things or like have comments to say. Like it wasn't because I was, trying to disrespect the authority figure, like nothing like that. It was just, I had a voice. And I think writing this chapter really let me know that it was, it was also very, it was a good thing, because I was like kind of curing something that I probably didn't know still needed some curing. So I, in writing it, I kind of talked about like making sure that you know who you are, that you're still, if it's calling your mom, if it's calling anyone, that they give you that pep talk. Because thinking back now as an adult, I can't think of how many times my mom was like, it's okay, like you're gonna do it, like no te preocupes, va a salir como va a salir. It was, it wasn't a question, it's going to happen. So I think a lot of us can really use that, in our day-to-day like life. Sometimes we don't know, we don't have control over a project, over a task, but it's going to, come out how it needs to come out, and that's that. So I kind of talked a little bit about that and like resetting. So my self-care routine is a little bit different. Like I like to reset at the end of the week, plan for what's to come, right? So I talked about a little bit of like journal prompts, but I call them questions. So you kind of sit down and reflect, kind of like how we're all saying, taking that step back and seeing like what we've been able to do and like what's to come and how we can tackle that. Because when you have like a clear, like in my mind, if my mind is clear, my space is clear, or my space is clear, then my mind is clear. So I'm able to complete more things. So yeah, it was very, very good and enriching to be able to talk about this, and hopefully it touches, someone else just like it touched me just to write it.
Marylou, real quick, that definitely resonated with me about going to the bathroom, got a toddler. I remember when my daughter was toddler age, she just turned 12 a couple weeks ago, but I was knocking on the bathroom like, what do you want? As Daddy, I love you. And then you feel guilty because you like screamed at her because you're trying to use the bathroom in peace.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, I love you too, like go away. So I totally relate.
I have three, age 3 and under.
Wow. You definitely need a self-care routine.
Yes, for sure.
I want to touch real quick on just aside from this awesome book, just what is happening nationally. Well, it's getting national attention with Governor Abbott and all the migrants that are being unfortunately kind of shipped to, for lack of a better word, to different cities, like my hometown in New York. I know there was like rumors. I live in Delaware now, and there was like rumors of them coming, and they never came. What is happening? Like, kind of give like some context, especially from like a social work perspective, and kind of like if you like what's the real deal? What is happening? What do you see like day in day out with individuals that you serve day in day out? Anybody can kind of want to touch on that.
So I know that there's a lot of talk about the new House bill that passed, and that we're going to be looking a lot like Arizona and questioning, that if people are here legally. And as social workers, we've been really looking at what is our role, because if you we don't want to get arrested, and it's kind of like the same concept. I know it's a little bit different, but when they were wanting us to report parents that were consenting to their kids to have sex reassignment surgery, it's almost like this ridiculous role to put us in when we're here to help people. And so if people come to us and they're not documented, it's not our place to say one way or the other. We're here to help them. And I know that for us, we're not required to ask, but we are required to have unconditional positive regard. And so as much as we can, how do we eliminate barriers and try to keep them safe? One of the contracted places that we work at, they work with a lot of immigrants and a lot of refugees. And so we see a lot of the trauma, even in our practice, we see a lot of the trauma that comes with that. And so really, how do we just step forward compassionately to help? I feel like sometimes these laws are passed, but our NASW is so active to overturn a lot of these things. And so we're constantly fighting back and saying, we're not going to do that. That's not humane, and we're not going to do that. And so I don't think that there's this culture of, okay, well, this is the way it is. I think that there's a lot of pushback, especially because the Hispanic community is growing so rapidly, and we're going to be the majority in a few years across the country. Right. And so we have to respect that. And I think the thing that I laugh about a lot is that we always say, like, we were Mexico first, you took our land, so they're just home, right? And so it's really just making sure that we're showing up and providing the resources, providing the mental health services that we have to undocumented individuals. That's why it's so important, because everybody's scared. They're scared. If I get pulled over, if you transport somebody who's not documented, you can get arrested, which means if their teenage child who's here legally is driving them to the store and they don't have documents, they could get arrested. That's not okay. And so we have to speak up about that.
That's
I
that's
don't,
absolutely insane.
yeah. So I don't know, Elizabeth and Crystal also work at a place that has a hotline, and I don't know if that's something that they're seeing on the hotline, if there's any calls from there, but there's just like so many Elizabeth Palafoxes in San Antonio, which is a bigger community of Hispanic individuals, and there's a lot of people there that are undocumented, and it's safe because there's pockets around the city that you don't need to speak English and you just blend in, and so it's kind of like, where do we all fit in? Marylou works also at a school district, and so she sees those kiddos, and I know in working with a lot of the teachers, those kiddos may or may not come to school because it depends on what's happening with their parents.
Mhm.
So I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so as Dr. Leti said, Crystal and I work at a navigation line, giving out mental health resources to anyone that's interested. And so we have seen an increase in Spanish calls just in the past year. There's more people that are reaching out, but they are very careful with what they say. And so obviously we don't ask for their status, if they're here legally or not, because that's none of our business. We're in the business of helping people, and part of that is, just making sure that they have the resources that they need. But at some conversations, people do share, oh, I just got here from Colombia, I just got here from Cuba, I just got here from Mexico. And obviously, that tells you that they're not here with documentation, but people are reaching out for help because they are scared, and they're finding the trust in people such as Cannenta to process those feelings. But it's hard for people to open up because they don't know who those safe people are.
Mhm.
And so part of what Cannenta is doing is making sure that we're out there tabling at different community events, making sure that we are, present in those community centers or wherever it is that the people are, where they need to see us so that they can at least process those emotions. We may not, be able to help them with, housing or electricity bills, but we may be able to point them the right direction and just give them like a safe space, to figure out what they want to do and game plan. But it is a big problem, and we just have to be more cautious and more empathetic with how we talk to people, for sure.
Crystal, you want to add towards that?
Yeah, and I was going to add also, Marylou talked about this earlier, how as social workers, we're all connected with the same goal in mind, which is like breaking barriers and making sure that people are getting the care that they need. But there is that fear, the job that I had before, I helped with applying for healthcare benefits for children in a city that was not known for having, a big immigrant population. So it was really hard to face the reality that I grew up thinking like this city is like fine and dandy, like they're well off, it's these 2-story houses. And like seeing now, as an adult and a person that's helping, that the reality was that immigrants were coming in and they were settling their own community within each other because they didn't have access to a lot of things. So, they maybe knew each other from back home, and now they were forced to just live with acquaintances because that was the only option they had. So it matters, between us as professionals to not only like network and know what each of us is doing, but also to the public, like sharing, whether it's just a repost. Like I think we do a good job at Cannenta about sharing what anxiety is, sharing what this diagnosis is, sharing any positive thing that it will hit one person, and that one person will probably go on and share and share and share, with their comadre, with the tia, with the tío, and like it just goes on and on. So it's not only, our goal within each other to stand strong together, but it's also to create like some sort of ambience and alliance between the community so that, they really know that they aren't alone. Because I think that's the fear, that they come in to the States thinking, yes, I'm here for a better life, but I'm also alone. So like, what am I going to do? So it's just really important for us to, you know, kind of hear them out and be that voice for them and ask all the questions like that we can and figure, I'm not going to say loopholes, but find other ways to really assist them.
No, even if it is like a loophole, or find something that sometimes I know even I find myself not doing a lot of case management type of work, kind of almost like maybe like manipulate the system, kind of like figure out you know the tricks, so you gotta like teach sometimes the clients that these are the tricks that maybe you could get something you might need, or at least try like anything to get, because I work with a lot of immigrant populations. I have a lot of Guatemalans come in, and there's a lot of Haitian population in southern Delaware, and they work at the chicken plants down here. There's a lot of rural where I work at, and just like starting just educate. There's a lot happening in 2024 going into 2025 here in Delaware in terms of like, okay, there's a huge like Senate race, and who knows what's going to happen. And obviously, there's the presidential election. Who knows what's that going to happen? And then there's just like money that's potentially coming in as here in Delaware. The legalization of marijuana is like legal, but it's not all the way legal yet. And it's like where that money is gonna come from, and how tax and what. So just things like that like trickle down effect. It will affect you somehow. Kind of like provide that sort of education while you live day in day out here. As you, number one, you're like just recently has from pandemic coming into the U.S. During the pandemic. That's trauma enough already. How you dealing with that? And number two, I work at an HIV clinic, and how you dealing with your diagnosis that you finally were able to get treatment for, that you probably had it in your native land, and now you're coming in, seeking treatment, or finally able to relax and in a way that you're not worried about. Okay, you're here now. Like, let me go seek treatment. So kind of, and then provide that education of not only their new diagnosis, but now also kind of like day to day what to look for, where are the resources are that you could that safely go to for medical treatment or anything for their benefit. So I definitely see that day in day out myself.
Could I also add that part of my work down here in San Antonio is I will conduct psychological assessments for people who are filing for immigration, approval in their cases. And I don't know if it is because of the new policies and laws, but I have getting more of an influx of referrals of people just wanting to go ahead and get these processes started. And I think it's important to have somebody, a provider, right, who is Spanish speaking, who can connect with them in that way to make them feel safe, right? Also somebody who's trauma informed, being able to ask the questions in a way that's not harming them or putting them in a state of leaving them worse off than when they came in to talk about these really difficult topics. And then while the assessments themselves are more just taking information in, it can also be therapeutic for a lot of them. It's the first time that they're sharing their story of everything that they've been through. And I can see in real time how they're processing that. And then, of course, redirecting them either to someone on our team or someone, within the community here in San Antonio that can help, fill those needs. But it's definitely, you feel it in the energy, you feel in the stories that they're sharing about friends that they know, family they know. It's tough to hear, but like everybody said, to be able to at least be the person to listen to them and dialogue with them is hopefully that support.
Now, Marylou, you working with the kiddos at the school, like how is that day to day for you, like, and just kind of see where the kids are at currently.
So I do work for a school, and I'm a advocate social worker for the homeless population. And so we don't ask if the families come in undocumented, but we are seeing like a number of families coming in from like Venezuela, Mexico. And so for some of those families, like we are like the support system for them. And so it is very hard. Just think about like, how is this going to like affect our students? Because sometimes the school can be like the safest place for these children. Some of them come in seeing like violence from where they were to come over here, but now we're supposed to be living like some people come because, you know, they want to live the American dream. But now we have like these barriers that can potentially cause more harm than good. So just being their support system and showing them, you know, we're here to help you guys. And sometimes it just takes like one person. So I have seen like whenever I say like I'm a social worker, I don't want to talk, I don't want to say anything because they're afraid of what to say, but just letting them know like I'm here to support you does make a difference. So
and unfortunately, the literal barriers from like news reports and the the river that separates Mexico and Texas, like a literal barrier to prevent people from coming into the U.S. Unfortunately, and it's just like that's why I like to ask like what I'm seeing is actually like happening like I can't like obviously we can't take the news like at face value and we try to watch like as less news as possible, but so much is happening that is important like kind of, and you guys are on the boots on the ground kind of see what's that, and just for the viewers and listeners to kind of like see, because it does relate the social work, and we kind of see that and unfortunately a lot of major cities are seeing the migrants are coming in from Texas and there's pushback in New York City, and all kind of stuff happening and just everywhere. So somehow somewhere everybody at least in the States is being affected by this. Let's go back to the self-care. If you hear all this trauma that you see every day, like how do you balance that out? You come a long day of work and you hear all these stories, you're trying to help, and like what besides what you wrote in the book, like what do you guys do in terms of like just actual like day-to-day self-care? Like you like hear these traumatic stories, like what do you do when you get home?
I put music on it, like actually like I love music. So talking about like rituals and habits, I started putting on like I did like a Spotify list, and it's called Feel Good Music. So like if I am having like a bad day, I'll put on like my Spotify list to like change that. And so it does the like, okay, like a little bit like, oh yeah. And so that has made a difference, putting just or doing something for myself.
I second what Marylou said. I don't have a specific Spotify list, but music does do something to the body, right? Whether it's bachata, whether it's any other, happy music tune. I think it just changes your vibe and your energy, and music is probably what keeps me sane after, hearing all types of experiences and stories. And other than that, just I'm a big dog lover, and so I have 2 Boston Terriers, and they keep me on my toes, and just, animals are another way of just de-stressing, and they know when you're stressed. They know, they can smell it. And so I know when I'm stressed whenever they're all up on me. And so I'm like, okay, I need to do something. Let's go for a walk. Let's go like disconnect from the phone, disconnect from the TV, and try to do something that's not related to a device. I think that's what really helps me.
Yeah, I'd have to probably like disconnecting from everything, even like social media sometimes. I know sometimes like you said, Bas, like what we see is the news and the news, and this is happening here and there, and like that could be very overwhelming, on top of like what we hear at work. So I think just disconnecting from your phone, enjoying. I'm a really big family person, so anytime if it's just even just going to dinner and eating or something, or going out to get coffee, same thing with my, like, just going out in nature. Really, it's just forgetting of what happened the past couple of hours is probably like the best medicine for me, even though it can be, daunting on me the next day. But I know for that remainder of the night or evening, I don't have to think about it and dwell on it. And knowing, that we do the best we can in the moment, and that there's still hope out there for the next day, and so on and so forth.
Elizabeth, you want to add?
Yeah, I was thinking, when we got the final copy of the book, I was reading my chapter, and those are still things I incorporate, but it was funny thinking like, wow, like a lot of things have changed since I wrote that, like my self-care. And so, while I still, practice some of that mindfulness, just if I get through the day, I'll give myself a treat, whatever that looks like, whether it's a coffee or ice cream or a pan dulce, like I did it. And then my own therapist, right? Going to therapy. And then she always recommends laughter. Like singing, it does something to our nervous system where we're able to just like regulate. And so just watching something really silly, or just playing with my pit bull and she's really silly, it's just laughter and release through laughter.
Dr. Leti, how about yourself?
I'm probably the worst one at this, but I'm trying to be really intentional. In my book, in my chapter, I talked about like just marking off times on your calendar that's not full, so it doesn't look like, because mentally I feel like I have to fill all the slots. And so I'm being very intentional of trying to not look at my computer when I'm not at the office unless I absolutely have to. And really being home and trying to let my brain rest when I'm not at work. And I was so proud of myself because we went to El Paso for Christmas, and it turns out to be a 12-hour drive for us one way. And I didn't open my computer once on the drive. And usually I work the whole way there and the whole way back, and I didn't open it once on the drive either way. And I was so proud of myself because I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. And so really realizing that you need to shut down. One of my mentors used to tell me that you can't be innovative if you're exhausted all the time. And trying to really own those words, like, hey, if I really want to be successful, I need to be able to take care of myself and get rest and do other things. And so the other thing that was really cool is over the break, my husband and I went and we did a pottery class and we did a glass blowing class, and it was so fun. And it was just nice to just get away and not worry about anything else than just be in that space of just enjoying life. And so it's really basic, but as a business owner, like it's 24/7 all the time. And so you have to be intentional about stepping away.
No, that is so true. Just stepping away is is important. I'm still trying to do stuff and figure things out, and but knowing like that time, and I started going therapy myself recently too, so that's like I had to, like, I can't, like, the podcasting and writing, I was like, okay, I need something. And then going to church, okay, the church helped, isn't it? Okay, I still need that's something else. So that's been a big part too. So I totally relate to that. What so what's next for 2024? We'll start with both Elizabeths, and then we go around.
Well, hopefully another book, right, Dr. Leti? So we still got to plan that out, but hopefully just, more focus on the person that you are creating every day. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of people have asked me what my, goals are for 2024, and I just keep saying me. Like, the goal is me. Focus on me and saying no. That no is a complete sentence, and it's okay. You don't have to give any sort of excuse of no because blah, blah, blah. No, no. And just being okay with that. I think the older I get, the more I realize that my time is valuable and that the people around me really, affect my energy. And so I need to be intentional with what I do with my time. And I think that's what's coming for 2024 for me personally.
I love that.
I guess professionally, what's coming in 2024, I'm hopefully transitioning from LMSW to LCSW, either end of spring, beginning of summer. So I'm very excited for that. Where, Dr. Leti has been really helpful in facilitating a lot of partnerships with folks here in San Antonio, for example, providing services to young adults in a supportive housing program through UTSA, and then just other partnerships. But personally, yeah, I really love what Elizabeth Jurado said. I always do a word of the year at the start of the year, and my word from the generator was experiment. So that was very different, and I'm very much someone who stays in their comfort zone and kind of does the same old. So I'm excited to play with that word and see what I come up with. But
Let's go to the census cave.
oh yes.
Vamos.
Crystal, how about for you?
So for me, I feel like December just ended so fast, and then I'm like, oh dang, January is here. But for me, also professionally, I want to, the organization I also work for on this other, for my other job too, is presenting and, educating a lot of like children, adults, parents, on mental health. So I really want to get better about speaking. I know I'm still like super shy about it. So this was like a big deal too. I was like nervous, but it's fun. It's just a conversation. So, shadowing as much as I can, also, learning from other people, and also just being very intentional of spending more time with family and our just friends. I feel like we get so stuck on the routine of like, I need to do this, this, and that. And then you ignore those texts. You're like, oh, I'll text back later. We'll meet up later on. So, being more responsive and involved in different activities, not just for myself, but also for others. And then I also proudly started therapy myself. And one thing I've needed to do that I don't do is that I talk about everyone else because I'm busy taking care of everyone else, that I don't pay attention to myself. So, learning to talk to myself, learn from myself, and also just be there, not just for everyone, but for myself first. Because as we've said, like, we can't be there for everyone if we're not there for ourselves. So that's my goal for the year.
Awesome. Marylou?
I think like I've heard a lot of us going to see like therapists. So seeing a therapist. And so one of my goals is focus. I think sometimes like being a mom, it's easy to get so lost and putting like our babies and our spouses first, that it's easy to get lost. And so because we're too busy like focusing on everybody else's needs and emotions, it's kind of like neglecting my own, and setting better like boundaries, because I'm always like, okay, yes. But then if I say yes, I'm putting myself like on the back burner. By the time that it comes to when I want to work on myself, it's kind of too late because I'm too busy taking care of everything and everybody else. So setting better boundaries and to seek therapy, and just learning that it's okay to say no. it's okay. See, I can say no. And then growing professionally, because this was very nerve-wracking for me. I can still feel my palm of my hand sweat, and I'm like doodling over here like with this clip. So learning, be like, it's okay, chill out, chill, it's okay. To take a better chill pill, I guess. So yeah, those are my
Dr. Leti, Elizabeth mentioned the amazing work of the partnerships. I've been paying attention, so I'm proud of you of everything that you're doing and what you're posting, and don't be too humble. It's okay to brag a little bit. You're doing amazing work. First and foremost, I want you to know that. On top of what how about 2024 for you?
So much like Elizabeth Palafox, I do word of the year, and my word this year is sustainability. And so looking at that in my personal life, it's like, how do I sustain my life, without wearing myself out? And so trying to figure out what those things are personally. This year will bring me my second grandbaby, so I'll be Gigi again. So I'm really excited about that. He'll be here in March. And professionally, we have a lot going on. And so we're going to be doing our summit this year on this book. So in April, we'll be doing the Self-Care for Chingona Summit. So we're really excited about that. And then in September, we're going to be doing our Hispanic Mental Health Conference again. This year, we're going to be doing 2 days instead of 1, because it was so well attended last year, and we received a lot of feedback that they wish they had more time to go to more sessions. And so we're going to do 2 days, and we're really excited about our keynote that we can't announce yet, but we have 2 amazing keynotes. We're going to have 1 each day. And so I think this year is going to be a lot of fun, a lot of growth, but also looking, like I said, at sustainability, because the work we do is so important. So we want to make sure that we're being good stewards of not just the money, but the relationships that we're building. And so we can be around for a long time to help a lot of people.
No, I love that. Where could people find you, ladies, if they want to connect? Dr. Leti, start with you.
Well, I think the easiest way is on our website. So it's cannentacenter.com. And our foundation is cannentafoundation.org. And that's where you can find our book, our merch, all of that. On both sites, I think. I know on the center site, cannentacenter.com, my email address is on there also. So feel free to reach out if anybody wants to reach out to me, and I will get back to you, but not on my downtime.
Elizabeth Jurado, where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn, Elixabeth Jurado. I'm on also the Cannenta Center website, and I also have a Instagram account for tips and love, guidance for any people that are interested. Together_ahead on Instagram. So go ahead and give me a follow, and hopefully people reach out.
The other Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think you could just find my information on the website. My email is on there. I'm going with the word experiment. I'm considering starting my social media accounts, but as of now, just you can find me on the website.
Okay. How about you, Crystal?
Same thing on LinkedIn, Crystal Gonzalez, and then on the Cannenta websites as well. And yeah, I'm experimenting as well, just like Elizabeth Palafox said.
How about you, Marylou?
on LinkedIn as well, and I work for the school district, so just HEB-ISD.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, ladies, for your time. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Dr. Leti, if you invite me to go back to Dallas, I promise I'll behave this time and won't mention anything about the Cowboys.
You're always welcome here. We'd love to have you.
For my San Antonio peeps, saludos a Wemby for me.
Yes.
Yes.